Make sure you subscribe on all platforms and leave that 5-star review. Let's get it.
Because I got Pat Riley on my side. No rebounds, no rings, right?
Man, look here. You can have Teddy Riley, Pat Riley, Lincoln Riley. Nuggets in 6.
Well, you can have Lincoln Riley.
Yeah,
you know that I told that I don't want to stay on parade, but I fucking want to stay on parade. This is the time.
Is it hitting you that you're an NBA champion yet, or you still need time?
You want to know what's hitting me is those Modelos.
Talk about it.
You are now tuned in to Above the Rim. Hoops talk for the streets.
Family, what's good? Welcome back to another edition of Above the Rim. Hoops talk for the streets. You already know how we do, family. Brought to you as always. It's your host, Justin, aka Just Blaze. Family, you know the drill. To get in contact with me, you can always hit me up and follow me on Twitter at JustBlaze_513, on IG at JustBlaze513, on Facebook and YouTube. Search Above the Rim Podcast, or also email the show as well. Above the Rim NBA Podcast at gmail.com. Family, tap in and leave a voicemail. The line is always open. 908-718-1592, family. Y'all already know what the number is. Best way to support the show is by copying your merch. As always, link is in my bio. Very easy to find. Make sure you show some love. I appreciate it, of course. I appreciate all the love, of course. Make sure you leave your boy a review on iTunes, on Spotify. If you rock with the show, if you're watching it on YouTube, make sure you stop what you're doing and hit that thumbs up. Subscribe, tell a friend, put it in the algorithm, whatever it is. I appreciate it, of course, family. Subscribe, comment, show some love. Tell me your thoughts. I want to hear from you as well. Let's get right into it, family. Solo episode right now, right? Listen, NBA Finals is done. Got to talk about that. Got to talk about a little NBA draft, a little bit of free agency coming up. There's a lot of things popping off right now because this is one of the most volatile times in the NBA coming up right here in free agency and the summertime in general, because you know there's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of movement, a lot of all of that stuff. So let's get right into it. Gotta talk about the NBA Finals. I know I haven't been here since I recorded the preview of the NBA Finals. I was a little disappointed in the NBA Finals because it ended so quick. It should have been a lot more than 5 games. I was predicting at least a 6 or 7 game series, but we only had a 5-game series. Congrats to the Denver Nuggets, 2023 NBA champions. Well-deserved win. First championship in the franchise's 47-year history. An ego-less team. A willing, unselfish superstar in Jokic, surrounded by an exceptional supporting cast of players that were all stars in their role throughout the postseason. A very dominant run for the Denver Nuggets that I can say they never trailed in a series or lost a game by over 10 points in the entire playoffs. The 1999 Spurs were the only other team that has done that. The Nuggets went 16-4 in the playoffs, the third team to go 16-4 or better in the last 20 seasons, postseasons. The other teams that have done that are the 2017 Warriors, who went 16-1, and the 2007 Spurs that also went 16-4. Nuggets won 10 of their last 11 games in the playoffs, including a road closeout game in Phoenix, a sweep them up for those LA Lakers, and both road wins against the Miami Heat. So I got to say, it was a very, very impressive playoff run for the Denver Nuggets, for Nikola Jokic, for Jamal Murray and the crew. Speaking of Jamal Murray, he was excellent throughout the playoffs, probably the most surprising on the Nuggets for me, and not just because he was scoring so well, because we always knew Jamal Murray can score. We always knew he's one of the better scorers in the league, but it was his consistency is what I was most surprised at and most pleasantly surprised by, right? And that's what I was very impressed with. He averaged 26-7 throughout the entire playoffs, averaged 21-10 in the finals. He was in big shot after big shot after big shot. And he really was the catalyst for the Nuggets playoff run. Jokic gets all the headline, gets all the credit, but Jamal Murray was really the driving force for the Nuggets throughout the entire postseason. And they wouldn't have won a lot of these games if it wasn't for his exceptional scoring, if it wasn't for his timely buckets throughout the postseason. So Jamal Murray was excellent throughout the postseason, and he did phenomenal throughout the postseason. Really upgraded his stock in the entire playoffs, right? Talking about Jokic, he had an all-time playoff run as well. One of the best postseason runs that I've seen in a while, so I got to give him credit, right? I was at least doubting him going into the playoffs, but all of those doubts are cleared. as far as I'm concerned, right? In these finals, he averaged 30 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, shot 58% from the floor. Jokic posted 10 total triple-doubles to pass Wilt Chamberlain for the most all-time in a single playoff run. He also finished the postseason as the first player in NBA history to lead all players in points, rebounds, and assists in a single playoffs, which is insane. Jokic was much improved on the defensive end. He didn't really allow any opponent to really take advantage of him on that end, which was one of his weaknesses going into the postseason that a lot of teams thought they could take advantage of. No team had actually accomplished that in the entire postseason. And winning NBA Finals MVP was the obvious choice for Nikola Jokic, right? He's the first center to win Finals MVP since Shaq in 2002. So let's talk about where Nikola Jokic ranks all time, right? There's been a lot of debate recently, been a lot of, some recency bias going on. I will say that a lot going on with where we rank Nikola Jokic in the hierarchy of big men, where we rank him in the hierarchy of players just in general, right? So this championship has put Nikola Jokic in the upper echelon of players, no doubt, right? But I don't do the recency bias that a lot of people have been going at least recently, and there's still quite a few players ahead of him when it comes to all-time centers and all-time players, of course, right? I think some people are starting to have a little bit of recency bias, and it can be a little understandable because he did just win the title. He did have a very dominant run en route to the title, so there is going to be some type of recency bias going on, and I understand that. So, talking about Jokic, where he ranks all-time, is he top 10 all-time? No way. Relax on that. Top 10? Absolutely not. Is he top 20 all-time? An argument can be made for him being top 20 all-time, but I would have him somewhere around 15 to 25, 15 to 30, somewhere around there. I didn't write my whole list down to my top 30, my top 50 players. I probably should do that over the summertime, and I will do that. But to me, in my rankings, Jokic is going to be somewhere between 15 and 25 because he has the stats. He now has the title. He has the MVPs. He has all the individual accolades. So I got to give him a lot of credit. And I've come around on Jokic. Listen, I'm one of the guys who talk about Jokic, his defensive liabilities, whatever the case may be. But he calmed a lot of that noise in this playoffs because he was excellent. On both ends of the floor, Nikola Jokic was excellent, right? So around 15 to 25 is, in my opinion. Now, some people got a little carried away and is acting like Nikola Jokic is the best center ever. Relax on that. That's wild disrespect to call Jokic the best center of all time, or even close to the best center of all time. I think is wild disrespectful, right? Don't disrespect the greats like that. There are but there are quite a few big men still on the hierarchy way ahead of Nikola Jokic. We got Kareem, obviously. We got Shaq. We got Wilt. We got Bill Russell. We got Hakeem the Dream. We got David Robinson. And we got Moses Malone. Those to me are the definitive list of players that are better than Nikola Jokic. Some people want to throw in Patrick Ewing. You could do that if you want to. Maybe Willis Reed. People want to throw in who else. But those are my, for sure, guaranteed centers who are still better than Nikola Jokic all time, right? Now, is he the best passing big man ever? I can give him that, absolutely, for sure. But he's got to do a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball to move up in the all-time center rankings, in my opinion. Me, the art and the essence of a big man is being able to be a defensive presence and being able to protect that rim. That's still stuff that Jokic has to work on, has to improve upon, and has to improve upon his dominance on the defensive end as well, because that's the essence of a big man. That's the essence of a center, being able to be your paint protector, rim anchor, defensive presence, all of that good stuff as what you need for your prime center, right? Has to do a little bit more in that department, but he is well on his way, no doubt, on the center list. Jokic can legitimately do it all from the center spot, right? Creating for teammates like a point guard, posting up with incredible high efficiency as a finisher, spacing the floor. He can hit the three, and he almost never really misses on his signature floater that he does a lot of the time throughout the games, right? If he can get another title, though, now we can start talking on where we can put him in the hierarchy of big men. But he still has to get another title, in my opinion, to be considered anywhere near those guys that I just named above him. So that's where Jokic ranks in the hierarchy of big men and the hierarchy of players in particular. Also, some recency bias was going on with duos. They were talking about the Jokic and Murray duo comp has gotten a little out of hand, in my opinion. Listen, Jokic and Murray is a great duo, great combination. They won an NBA title, but they are nowhere near one of the best duos of all time. I'm just keeping it in the stack from my vantage point, right? I saw a lot of people on Twitter, ESPN, Fox, all over other places. They started to really compare Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray to Kobe and Shaq. Relax. Pump the brakes. I don't even have a pump the brakes sound effect, but I need to get that. Relax. It's wild disrespectful to compare them to Shaq and Kobe as a duo all time in the NBA. It's just not happening. Maybe statistically it may line up somewhere, shape, or form where it's either remotely comparable, but in terms of impact, in terms of dominance, absolutely not. The recency bias has been on high alert when it comes to Jokic and Murray, because if you're even remotely putting them in the same stratosphere as a Shaquille O'Neal, as a Kobe Bryant, as a duo, you need to relax. Maybe if you want to do compare them to a T-Mac and Yao type of duo, that will be good. I'm trying to think of other duos on the top of my head. I can't think of them right now, but there are a couple of duos that you can compare them to. I don't think you can even compare them to LeBron and Wade right now. I think that was also too much more dominant than this particular duo because, like I said, it's too early. It's too early for that kind of talk. It's one title, one playoff run, one great playoff run, one title. You got to do it on a consistent basis in order to be compared with those type of greats in the hierarchy of the NBA, as a whole, right? So you got to pump the brakes a little bit on where we rank that duo. Talking about the Nuggets as a dynasty now, also very premature. That also needs to relax a little bit. It's one title. I think it's a little bit premature to call the Nuggets a dynasty in the making or any type of dynasty talk in general. I think it's too early, right? In order for a team to qualify for any type of dynasty talk, you have to win at least 2 titles in a 3-year span or 3 titles in a 5-year span in order to be considered any type of dynasty, any type of dynasty talk. So it's way too early for that. Pump the brakes on the Nuggets. But congrats to them. 2023 NBA champions. Dominant playoff run. They earned this title. I know a lot of people are talking about the teams that they played. Some of them were playing teams. They played the most playing teams of all time on a playoff run. But I'm one of the people who doesn't care about that because you can't control that. You can't control who you play. You can only control what you put out with the teams that are playing against you, right? So it's not their fault that the Suns were injured. It's not their fault that the Lakers stink and they couldn't win a game. It's not their fault that the Miami Heat really had no business in the NBA Finals as an 8th seed. It's not their fault that the Sixers couldn't do their job, the Bucks couldn't do their job, the Celtics couldn't do their job. It was the Nuggets' job to win, and that's what they did. So they took advantage of the opportunity, and now they have their NBA title, and now they are 2023 NBA champs. And you got to give them love. You gotta give them respect. You can't hate on the Nuggets right now. They won the title fair and square. They were the healthiest team, and what do I always say? The healthiest team always wins in the playoffs. So shout out to them. Shout out to the Nuggets. Let's talk a little bit about the Miami Heat also, right? The Miami Heat losing their second finals in 4 years, very disappointing. But they had a Cinderella run to the finals, right? So you got to give them a lot of credit in that aspect for even getting there, because I guarantee you nobody had the Miami Heat making the finals in the beginning of the year or even at the beginning of the postseason had them getting to the finals, right? So they took out the top-seeded Bucks. They dismantled the Knicks. Then they had a tough 7-game series against the Celtics. But they played great up until the point of the finals. And that's why I was a little disturbed and I was a little bit bugged out by the performance of the Miami Heat as a whole. And not of the Heat as a whole, in particular, Jimmy Butler, right? What happened to Jimmy Butler in the NBA Finals? It was a little bit suspect to me. And I wasn't trying to use my words wisely. I was disappointed. All right, I'm going to keep it that way. I was disappointed in Jimmy Butler's performance in particular in the finals, right? This was a mystery of all mysteries to me. The drop-off in production from Jimmy Butler in the finals was very suspicious, very suspect. I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know if he was injured and didn't want to say. You know, they said he had some family issues he was dealing with also as well. Could be a little bit of defense also as well too. But to have that big of a drop off between rounds 1, 2, and 3, and then in the matchup that matters the most, is that much of a drop off, was very, very disappointing. So I'm disappointed in Jimmy Butler for that. The points per game went down significantly. He could have been a whole lot better in this series. I was just disappointed in his performance as a whole. Bam and Gabe Vincent played very well throughout the finals, and they picked up the whole slack. They picked up the slack for Jimmy, but it wasn't enough. Now, the streets are basically questioning Jimmy after this series on if Jimmy Butler is a star or a superstar. And that's a valid question right now, because to me, how I look at it is Jimmy Butler is a star with superstar qualities. Right? So let me tell you what I mean. The only thing that prevents Jimmy Butler from being a superstar, in my opinion, is box office, right? My requirements for a superstar is production, leadership, and box office. If I had to break it down into 3 categories, right? I don't think this is any really fault of his own, because this is not really about personality, because he does have the personality of a superstar. But I just think Jimmy Butler is missing that box office appeal to draw the average fan in, to draw the casual fan in. So that's why a lot of people were complaining about this NBA Finals, that it wasn't the 2 teams that they wanted to see in the NBA Finals, the 2 teams that they weren't particularly familiar with in this NBA Finals. And it's really because Jimmy Butler or Nikola Jokic is not box office. Now, Jokic is one of the weird candidates where he is a superstar without being box office, because he is so individually and statistically dominant that it can overcome that. And the Nuggets team as a whole is not box office, but he's one of the few stars that can offset that. But Jimmy Butler, he's not statistically dominant. So that's why he does need that box office draw in order to consider him a superstar. Now, he has superstar talent. He has superstar mentality. He has superstar heart, all of that. But for me in particular, for me to consider him a superstar, I think you need that extra box office appeal. And I think he can easily get it. You know, I mean, it's not any that much of a drop off. It's not to say that he's any less of a player than the other guys. It's just there are certain criteria with a superstar and with a star. And there's a star who can play like a superstar because he plays like a superstar in key moments. And that's really what matters, is winning at the end of the day, right? So with that being said, Jimmy Butler, he doesn't have to have a superstar next to him in order to win, because he is on that borderline cusp of the 2, right? But the Miami Heat, they do need to make some changes after this loss in the finals, right? This offseason, it's about to get very interesting for the Miami Heat, right? Tyler Hero, he needs to be looked at, and how much the Heat actually need him, or if he can be moved, because you see they went this entire playoff run without Tyler Hero, without any real production from Tyler Hero. And I was disappointed in Spo that he didn't at least try to use him at all in the last couple of games. That was a little disappointing, but that's neither here nor there. Gabe Vincent, Strus, Love, Zeller, Depot are all free agents for the Miami Heat this summer. So we're going to see an overhaul in their roster going into next season. They're going to have some changes that they have to make, because the Miami Heat, they need a bona fide number 2 offensive option. A bona fide number 2, because relying on Bam Adebayo to be a number 2 option offensively is not really a recipe for success, because you see, he was playing above his means in the finals, right? He was playing excellent, but he's not a scorer, and he shouldn't be expected to score 20 plus in order to win a series. There should be somebody else taking over that offensive load when Jimmy can't perform, which we saw in the NBA Finals, right? So the Heat need a bona fide number 2 option, and that's why you're hearing a lot of Bradley Beal stuff happening right now. This is where Bradley Beal is coming into play. He's been the hot name, the hot rumor now for the last couple of days. Shams had that tweet out that he's been talking with management, working on a trade for himself. He has a no trade clause. So let's talk about it, right? Bradley Beal is one of those stars who's in a unique situation because he has a no trade clause, right? Which essentially means that he can veto any trade of himself to any team that the Wizards want to trade for him, right? The Suns, they can offer a package of DeAndre Ayton and Shamet for Beal, or maybe a CP3 and Shamet type of deal. Either way, the Suns deal will almost certainly eliminate any cap flexibility that they will have to upgrade that roster, to make more moves with Bradley Beal on the roster. So it will be another year of the Phoenix Suns having a very top-heavy team if they were to do that Bradley Beal deal and just filling out the roster with minimum contracts in addition to their top four, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Beal, KD, Devin Booker is an excellent trio, a dominant offensive trio, but they don't really complement each other's games very well as they should, in my opinion, right? It's clearly an offensive focused type of deal if you were to bring Bradley Beal over here to Phoenix and then you have a trio of Beal, Book, and KD, right? Because when I'm looking at it, clearly there's going to be no point guard in that roster. Now, scoring is not going to be a problem. Those are three guys who can score damn near 30 points a night. That's not going to be a problem. But we've seen in this postseason, what's more important, star power or depth? We've seen the Nuggets are winning with depth. We've seen Miami Heat won with depth, right? We see that. So is it a smart move? Me personally, I wouldn't go for a guy like Bradley Beal to include with this particular Phoenix Suns roster, but I understand the appeal because if a star wants to come to your roster, you really try to do whatever you can to make it happen, right? And then you start off with a trio like that, and then you let the chips fall where they may. But on the Phoenix Suns, they're going to have to really figure out what's the dynamic, who's 1A, 1B. Bradley Beal is going from the number one option being a franchise player to the third option. People think that's easy to do, but it's not easy to do. I know he's getting paid his money regardless, but it matters when you get into crucial moments, when you're on the floor in the playoffs. Bradley Beal's the one who's going to have to take the biggest step back and really become more of a defender or take a little bit more of a defensive identity if he's going to be guarding point guards, if he's going to be guarding threes, twos, who even knows? So I think that's a little interesting fit. So let's talk about whose stock has been elevated and whose stock has gone down after this NBA playoffs right here. Because there's a couple of players that I was thinking about. They're trending up, and a couple of players who are trending down after their performances in this NBA playoffs. So some of y'all may agree with me. Some people may not agree with me. But I want to know y'all thoughts on this too, right? So some of the guys that I have trending up after this NBA playoffs, going into the summer, going into next season, Nikola Jokic, obviously. Jamal Murray, obviously. Aaron Gordon, I think, is trending up. He's played excellent defense throughout the postseason. I think he's going to be in the upper echelon of wing defenders in the NBA now. Devin Booker with his exceptional playoff run. Jalen Brunson, I think his stock is going up after an excellent playoff run. De'Aaron Fox, his stock is going up after an amazing first playoff run. Jimmy Butler, his stock went up after an amazing playoff run up until the NBA Finals, but his stock is still up because now you're going to see how the Heat retool and reload around Jimmy Butler because they see he can still do it, right? Russell Westbrook, I think his stock trended up after this postseason playing the Suns in the first round. After no Kawhi, after no PG, he was still stepping up and being that guy for the LA Clippers. We're going to see what he does in free agency. Mikal Bridges, I think his stock went up in this postseason, even though they got swept out of the first round. He was excellent throughout that first round series. He was averaging over 25 or something like that, really showing that he can be a number one option for a team. That's going to be great for his career going forward. Malik Monk, his stock went up after his first round series against the Golden State Warriors. He proved to be the dog in that series. He was excellent. Also, Gabe Vincent, I feel like his stock is trending up also after this playoff run because he was excellent throughout the postseason and even in the NBA Finals. I believe he was the first or second leading scorer for the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. So for him being an undrafted guy who doesn't have a contract and becoming the number one or two scorer on an NBA Finals team, I think that was excellent for Gabe Vincent. Some of the guys trending down. Now, y'all may or may not agree with me on this, but Kevin Durant, I think his stock is trending down after the postseason. Now, unfortunately, I'm just saying this reluctantly, but his stock has went down a little bit because I didn't like and I can't believe how Aaron Gordon was locking him down in our playoff series. I don't know why anybody's not talking about this. Like, listen, I'm going to keep it a stack. Listen, KD's my guy, one of my favorite players ever, but I got to keep it a stack. AG, he was locking you down in the postseason. I was surprised. Like, I couldn't even believe what I was watching. But then again, the year prior in the playoffs, Jason Tatum locked you down. knocked you down also. This is something that I'm keeping in mind right here. This is 2 postseasons in a row, my brother, that you have been not shut down, but locked down by an elite wing that's a little bit bigger than you, girth-wise, muscular-wise. You're still taller than both of those guys, so you should have still been able to get your shot off and get your production off, but it was a struggle for you in both series, so that's something that I am worried about, that I am looking into. Now, KD's getting older, he's getting a little bit more injury-prone, so we'll see. I don't know if you can rely on him as to be that only guy in the postseason to count on him. I mean, you can still count on him. I'm not trying to disrespect. What I'm just saying is count on him to be that 35 a night type of guy. I don't know if you can do that because he's going to have some trouble with this new age of NBA younger, bigger, stronger defenders that they have now. So Embiid, I think his stock slightly went down in this postseason, even though he won MVP this year. I didn't really like how he particularly played in the playoffs. His points per game went down, I think, about 7 to 9 points in this postseason. It went down. Not good. Don't like that. And then also he wasn't healthy at the end, again, as usual. So his stock, I think, went down. Donovan Mitchell's stock, I think, went down a little bit going into this postseason. The lights seemed to be a little bit too bright for him playing against those New York Knicks. So I didn't like what I saw from Donovan Mitchell, even though he had some good scoring. But it's not just about scoring. When I look at basketball, when I watch basketball, I'm not just watching scoring. I'm watching your demeanor. I'm watching your leadership. I'm watching how much of a dog you are throughout the postseason. If you're still fighting, I really pay attention to a lot of those body language as well. So I think his stock went down a little bit. Jaylen Brown, I think his stock went down a little bit in this postseason, unfortunately. I know he's still going to get his max contract. He's got a deal extension coming up. But the way he played in this postseason, I wasn't particularly fond of his performances. He can be a lot better, and he is a lot better than what he's shown in this postseason. Julius Randle, I think his stock went down a little bit. Listen, he was not what he was supposed to be for the Knicks. But a person like me, I'm not surprised about that because I knew Julius Randle, he shouldn't be your number one option going into the postseason. DeAndre Ayton, his stock plummeted throughout this postseason of how he was getting smoked by Nikola Jokic throughout this postseason. I have too much to say, but I won't say anything right now about DeAndre Ayton because his stock has definitely been lowered, but he is up for a trade. So we'll see what happens there. Tyler Hero, he's trending down after this postseason because they've shown that the Heat don't really need him to really advance. Dylan Brooks, his stock went down this postseason after that whole LeBron debacle and everybody clowning him on Twitter. He was man enough. I'm going to say man. He was bold enough to talk shit to LeBron, but then he didn't back it up in the postseason. And then he ran from the media after that, which I didn't like. So that was kind of whack. So his stock went down. Jordan Poole also as well. I think his stock went down in this postseason. He's getting paid, $200 million or something like that? That's really ridiculous to me. But his stock went down. I think the value of some of these players have shifted throughout this postseason and mostly in perception as well. We're going to see how perception and optics affect their real value moving forward and their real trade market value, their free agency market value. We're going to see how the perception of the postseason has affected that in the case of GMs or whatever the case may be. So we're going to see. Let me know if there's anybody that I miss on trending up or trending down in this particular segment. Let me know, fellas. Let me know what you guys are thinking. If you agree with my picks, if you want to add somebody or take somebody off that list, let me know. Moving on, let's talk about the NBA draft right now, family, right? The draft, actually, before we get to the NBA draft, we got to talk about the 2019 draft class because they've been a little out of control lately, right? You know why? John Morant's suspension, I'm going to talk about that really quick. His suspension has been handed down 25 games without pay by the NBA for conduct detrimental to the team for showing another gun on his IG Live. My thoughts on this, I'll make this quick and really brief. Listen, man, Instagram is the devil in digital form, all right? The devil in digital form. IG is always getting someone caught up or caught in on something, right? The reason why I think Instagram is so devilish right now is because it's giving people making people feel the need to show off, right? And that to me is really the issue right now. They don't have to, but when they see others showing off on Instagram, they feel like they have to compete and then they have to show off. And I feel like that's what's going on with the case with John Morant because it was unnecessary. I just feel like he wanted to show off a little bit to whoever it is. You don't know who's in John Morant's life that he's showing off to, that he wants to impress. You have no idea us folks who are looking at it from the outside looking in. So you got to take that into account. And he's doing it on Instagram. So you know it has something to do with somebody who's on Instagram, right? So it's about that. Now, was the suspension warranted? Absolutely, I'm going to say. Like, you just can't do stuff like that. You can't be showing off the piece in public like that. You are a brand, my brother. You got to remember that. And the NBA is really punishing Ja Morant for a second offense because they let you slide the first time. If you didn't do it the first time, it was the first offense, you might have got 8 games, 5 games, whatever the case may be. But I thought somewhere around 15 to 25 games was necessary or was adequate because the NBA wants to send him a message. And I'm not mad at that. You know, I understand both sides. You know what I'm saying? But it was a dumb move the first time, and it was an even dumber move the second time for Ja Morant. Let's hope Ja is finally learning his lesson and realize that it's time to put better people around you instead of the yes men that are there right now, because we can tell there's a lot of less yes men around Ja Morant and not helping him and not really pulling his card and letting him know you're making a bad decision right now. Chill out, homie. We got a lot of good stuff going on. Let's not mess that up, right? And will Ja Morant be fine? Absolutely. He hasn't committed any crimes. It was just an irresponsible mistake from a young man who we know will try to do better in the future. So showing love to Ja Morant. I know you're going to be suspended for this next 20, 25 games. I know you're appealing it and stuff like that. But in my opinion, I would say just take the punishment on the chin and just let everybody know you're a better man for this. You've learned your lessons going forward, and you're going to be the best athlete and most importantly, the best man that you can be going forward, right? So, Ja, hold your head. You'll be all right, my brother. Zion is his boy. Come on now. He's a little bit... I'm over here laughing because I'm just thinking about the story. Zion, what can I say about this brother right here, right? His shit is more, it's more than just being irresponsible. His is just dumb, all right? Zion is just dumb. Getting himself involved with the wrong kind of woman is just dumb. Come on, man. And listen, it's going to be his downfall, clearly. Now, we hope he learns his lesson after this, but clearly it's looking like this might be his downfall. He's got to make better choices and leave those strippers alone, my brother. Now, listen, I definitely find it suspicious that after all of this stripper drama that he's going through right now, telling everybody he's pregnant and then all the drama that's ensued, that all of these trade rumors have just been coming out of nowhere when his public image has been taking a hit. I don't think it's any coincidence. I think it's a smokescreen, actually, right? I think it's like a PR thing that they're trying to do is put his name in the news for trade rumors rather than what his name is in the news for now. And if you don't know what his name is in the news for now, just Google it, go on Twitter, figure it out. It won't be that hard to find, all right? So do I think they're going to trade Zion? Absolutely not, right? I think there's too much of the fear of unknown to let him go already from the team, right? Is Zion untouchable in a trade, though? No. I think it will happen eventually, maybe, but not this particular summer, right? But what would it take for someone to consider trading Zion? I think this upcoming season for Zion is the most important in his career. He has to play at least 65 to 70 games and get to the playoffs in order to raise his stock. If he doesn't do that, I think they seriously consider trading him and will trade him next summer. If this particular season coming up, he doesn't play 65 to 70 games and really be a driving force, because now this is going to be, year 5, I think? Year 5? He hasn't had a fully healthy season yet, and that shit is unacceptable. So, me personally, I wouldn't trade him yet, because when he's healthy, he's shown he can be a very dominant force, and we have seen that. The Pelicans were the number 1 seed at one point in this particular season with him healthy, and I don't see why they can't replicate something like that going next year with the same type of roster if healthy. So we're going to see what happens with Zion, and leave them girls alone, bro. Leave them alone, my brother. Let's get into the NBA draft, right? Very important. This week, NBA draft is coming up. Can't wait for that. The Spurs, San Antonio Spurs, have the number 1 pick. Obviously, we know who they are taking with that number 1 pick. Victor Wembanyama is a freak of nature, man. The Spurs have landed most coveted draft prospect in a very long time. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the best NBA draft prospect ever, in my opinion. Then LeBron James was the best NBA draft prospect since Kareem. Now, 20 years later, Wemby might be the best NBA draft prospect since LeBron James. Zion was probably the last rookie to get this kind of hype. But Wemby's is way higher than that. The way they pumping him up, the way they hyping him up right now. And I'm very curious to see how his game translates in the NBA. Now, will Wemby to the Spurs shake up the league in year one? It could possibly. Who knows? Crazier things have happened. I honestly don't know what to expect from him going into the NBA next year, right? So when we're looking at him now, number one draft prospect, clearly, supremely talented, of course, can do it all on the floor at his size. Wemby is a testament to how basketball itself is changing right now. Just look at the NBA game today. 4 out of the 5 All-NBA players this season are not American. All 5 are 6'6" and taller. No small guys making All-NBA anymore, right? He's a 7'4", 7'5" guy with guard skills, quick feet, can defend on the perimeter, great shot blocker. When you're watching Wemby, you feel like you're watching the future of the NBA right before your eyes, right? He has the skills to operate on every level on both sides of the ball. He can be an immediate impact defender if he puts his mind to it, and a great scorer if he puts his mind to it. He will be under the tutelage of one of the great coaches ever in Greg Popovich. So we know he's going to have the right knowledge and he's going to play the game with the right fundamentals the way it needs to be. It's crazy to me how the Spurs, they keep getting generational big men through the draft, right? This is the 3rd time they're getting a generational big man, and luck is on their side throughout the draft, right? So we're going to see how Wemby, his game really translates to the NBA after the Spurs pick him. And all eyes are going to be on him, of course. And he's going to be a phenom. He's going to be a force. Listen, I'm not hating on the guy at all. I think he's got to bulk up a little bit, but I think that comes in time. We seen when KD was drafted, he was a little bit on the slim side, but we see, he made it work for himself. So we're going to see how Wemby really, bulks up or tries to bulk up, or how he can handle the physicality of the NBA when he gets there moving forward. Now, the main mystery in the NBA draft, I don't know why it's a mystery, but it's like a semi-mystery, is between picks number 2 and number 3. The Charlotte Hornets have the number 2 pick, and the Portland Trail Blazers have the number 3 pick, right? There are only 2 choices to make, in my opinion, as we all know. Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller, right? But if you're the Hornets, there's only one choice that you can make, and you better make the right one, okay? Scoot Henderson over Brandon Miller is the obvious and the correct choice. Don't play yourself, Charlotte Hornets, okay? Don't pass up on a generational talent like Scoot Henderson because of positional fit, right? You take the best talent available, and then you let your chips fall where they may. Scoot Henderson is one of those guys that I'm very high on, and I think his game is going to translate so well into the NBA, right? You have an aggressive scoring guard, an attacking guard who can play make and can contribute immediately in the NBA, solid passer, NBA ready, and most importantly, this man is hungry. He's hungry. I'm telling you, man, Scoot Henderson has a major chip on his shoulder, and he's that type of rookie that I want on my team. How can you pass up on this guy? And if Scoot was in any other draft that didn't have Wemby in there, he would be the number 1 pick. That's why I'm saying it would be a terrible law to not pick Scoot Henderson by the Charlotte Hornets. I don't care about the fit. Don't care if you have LaMelo already on your roster. If the Hornets don't pick Scoot Henderson with that number 2 pick, it would be a generational L. A generational L. Charlotte, do the right thing. Select Scoot Henderson. Figure out the rest later. We're going to see how that works out. It's some other NBA draft sleepers. Seth Lundy from Penn State, I think he'll be solid coming into the league. Cam Whitmore, I think, will be another sleeper NBA draft prospect. I think it's going to be good. We're going to do a draft episode later going in more detail about what's going on with these picks. So look out for the NBA draft coming this week. It's going to be solid. Moving on. Let's talk about some NBA coaches that were signed. If you guys didn't see, there were a big major coaching carousel going on throughout the NBA playoffs. Monty Williams was hired in Detroit. I think that's a great fit for them, a great culture fit for them. He's going to be the highest paid coach in the NBA. Frank Vogel in Phoenix, I thought it was a good choice for them. They're trying to get to a more defensive type of team, more defensive type of schemes. Frank Vogel is good for that. And he did the right thing by hiring the right assistant coaches. Kevin Young kept him there as an assistant coach. And then most importantly, they got David Fizdale. David Fizdale is one of my favorite coaches in the NBA. He's been one of my favorite guys in the NBA. And he's going to be Frank Vogel's main assistant over there in Phoenix. And I think that's going to do well for them. I think David Fizdale is really the guy who's going to make that team tick. Nick Nurse hired in Philly. we're gonna see what type of X's and O's he brings to that team. Ime Udoka was hired in Houston. It feel like it's happened so long ago because it happened towards the beginning of the playoffs that happened. But I think that's going to be interesting in Houston Rockets. I think Ime Udoka probably should have waited because there were a lot more jobs that opened up as soon as he went to Houston. But I think it's going to be a good fit for him, really establishing a culture over there the same way he had to do in Boston. Adrian Griffin is now the new coach in Milwaukee. He's the Toronto Raptors assistant coach. He's actually Nick Nurse's assistant coach. So now he's going to be in Milwaukee and Nick Nurse is going to be in Philly. The Raptors hired Darko, I forgot his last name, the ex-Grizzlies assistant from there for the Toronto Raptors. So he's going to be an interesting fit there. All solid hires in my opinion. But the revolving door of coaches has gotten a little bit out of hand in the NBA. I'm not going to lie. I always ask myself when I'm looking at coaches getting hired and fired, does the organization look at players when they don't live up to expectations, or do they just go the easy route and just fire the coach? Because to me, that's just the easy route. It's very lazy to blame the coach every time your team loses. Sometimes it's just the players. Sometimes the guys are not stepping up. Sometimes the guys don't have the heart to do it. It's not always the coach. The coach can only do so much. But some of your guys, they just not ready to win. It just happens that way. So an example of this is, look at Denver Nuggets, Mike Malone. This was his 8th year in Denver, right? And they could have fired him any of the years. They could have fired him when they got swept. They could have fired him when they didn't make the playoffs. They could have fired him when they went out of the playoffs really quick and was in a 5-game series. But they kept sticking with Coach Mike Malone. The team got healthy, and look, they're rewarded with a championship. So sometimes patience can be rewarding if you believe in that coach. So sometimes being patient is better than just jumping the gun and firing the coaches, right? So we'll see how these new head coaches step forward and they really take care of the X's and O's for their particular team. Michael Jordan, with some other news in the NBA, he sold his stock in the Charlotte Hornets, talked about them having a number 2 pick. This is a crazy time for him to be selling the team while they're getting a number 2 pick in the draft, which they haven't had in so long. This is crazy, but it's going to be an end of an era, right? So Michael Jordan, he's finalizing a deal to sell his majority share of the Charlotte Hornets, a move that will end his 13-run year overseeing the organization. The team announced on Friday. I believe he's getting $3 billion for this sale of the team. So that's just crazy. $3 billion for the sale. MJ, I ain't mad at you for that. I'll tell you that. But this is significant because it's Michael Jordan, number one. Everybody knows Michael Jordan as the owner. But it's also significant because Jordan's decision to sell the team leaves the 30-team NBA without any black majority ownership anymore. With Jordan leaving, there's no black ownership. No black ownership. No black ownership in the NBA with Michael Jordan leaving. So that's why it's a big deal. I understand wanted that change. I understand that $3 billion is a big deal. But we need some black ownership in the NBA. It cannot be black ownership less in the NBA with Michael Jordan leaving. So that's why it's a huge deal with him selling this franchise, right? And now somebody's going to have to step in and handle and renege and fill that void, right? The NBA is going to have to do something about that, in my opinion, because Michael Jordan, even though he was a minority owner, he didn't really do a great job. Didn't really do a great job at all. The Hornets went 423-600 in his 13 seasons as an owner. That's such a losing record. He had the 26th best record over that span in the 30-team league, right? He never won a playoff series at all as his owner in the Charlotte Hornets, and hasn't even been to the postseason in any of the last 7 years. Last time he was in the postseason I think that was when Kemba Walker was there. That might have been the last time they were in the postseason, if I could recall and recollect. And that to me that's terrible. So the NBA is going to have to do something about that. And I'm sad to see that there are now no type of black ownership in the NBA for a league that's predominantly and primarily black. So that needs to change, hopefully sooner rather than later. So let's see what the NBA is going to do about that. Rounding out the show, there's going to be a lot of free agency talk. I'm going to do another free agency episode coming up. There's going to be a lot more talk of that, what's in the forefront this week. We saw Fred VanVleet opt out of his contract We don't know what's going to happen there. I said on Twitter that I like the destination for him to go to the Orlando Magic. I think that would be an excellent fit for Fred VanVleet. That's a team that he can take into the playoffs. They have, some nice pieces to work with. Obviously, got my man Paolo Banchero over there, which is the rookie of the year, one of the best rookies the league has ever seen in a while. They talk about Wemby, but nobody's giving my man Paolo some respect with those numbers that he put up last year. So I think Fred VanVleet would be a nice pickup for that team. They can afford him. So it would be nice if they could get him over there. Maybe Gary Trent is leaving the Raptors as well. He's still figuring out what he's going to do with his contract. The Warriors, where do they go from here? Obviously, Bob Myers, the GM, president of basketball operations, is gone now. He stepped down. Mike Dunleavy Jr. is replacing him. Do the Warriors extend Klay Thompson? We don't know. What do they extend Draymond Green? We don't know. Do they trade Jordan Poole? We don't know. They have a couple of decisions that they have to make because I'm sure they're not happy about losing in the second round to a team that got swept in the next round. So that, to me, if I was the Warriors, I would be pissed that a team that beat me got swept. Come on, that means they had no business being in the next round. So we're going to see what they're going to do moving forward. Quickly, going into free agency, I had to think of my top 5 off-season questions going into the July 1st free agency, right? So really quick, my top 5 off-season questions going into free agency, the off-season period. Number 1, will Kyrie Irving run it back in Dallas? I think that's going to be real interesting to look for because what happens with him also dictates a lot of the market. Will he run it back in Dallas? Is he going to the Lakers? Will he try to get to the Heat? Who knows what Kyrie Irving's going to do? Number 2, James Harden. And what is James Harden's priority? Is it winning or comfort? Because if the priority is winning, then he'll go back to the Philadelphia 76ers. If the priority is comfort, then he's probably going to head over there to Houston because we know that's his comfort zone. We know that's what he loves to do. He's not really the greatest leader, but he cares about comfort more than anything, and clearly Houston wants him as well. So that's something major to really watch out for because it will shake up the East if James Harden leaves the 76ers to go to the Houston Rockets, right? Number 3, how will the Phoenix Suns retool their roster this summer? They only have 4 players under contract: Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul. What's going to happen with the Phoenix Suns right now? Is Chris Paul moving on? I hope not. But if he's moving on, we'll see how that goes. Now, I'm not surprised by anything in the NBA anymore. Are they going to keep DeAndre Ayton? He's on a trading block. We know they have offers for him. Which offer will they take? We'll see. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. Wow, what is their pairing going to look like moving forward with their new coach? Are they looking to get Bradley Beal? Bradley Beal may be there. Will Chris Paul be there with them? Will DeAndre Ayton be with Bradley Beal? I don't know. So how Phoenix Suns retool their roster is going to be something major. It will also dictate the offseason. Will also change the offseason. The Miami Heat, how do they help Jimmy Butler on the offensive side of the ball going into the offseason? We've seen they can make the finals without having a very good offense. They were literally the worst offense in the league this year and made the NBA Finals. If they had a scorer on that team, who knows? They probably could have won that NBA Finals. Let's be real. So how do the Miami Heat retool on their success that they just had this season, right? So do they get them an offensive prowess? I hope they get them an offensive player that can really help out Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Last but not least, my top offseason question, will Damian Lillard stay in Portland? I feel like we've been asking that every single year. But who knows? This year has been the first year it's gotten kind of loud now because they got that number 3 pick. Are they going to trade that number 3 pick to get Damian Lillard some help? Will they keep that number 3 pick and maybe see if that person can help, which I don't think they will help right now in terms of winning, getting to the playoffs. If they keep that number 3 pick, will that ultimately make the decision for Damian Lillard to leave? Because he could do that also as well because he doesn't feel like they can compete in that Western Conference. So we're going to see what's happening with Damian Lillard in Portland, what's going to happen with him. And the offseason is going to get sticky, family. Make sure you're keeping it locked in here and let me know your thoughts on the offseason. If whoever's going to stay, who's going to move, because you know the NBA news cycle happens very fast. Players are going to be moving very quickly, and we're going to see how that works out, right? So, family, Appreciate you guys for joining me on another episode. Appreciate you guys sticking it out with me for a whole hour going through everything that's going on with the NBA right now. I tried to get in here before, but I had to gather up all the info, gather up on the news because this is a very important time in the NBA coming up soon. You got the NBA draft, you got the free agency, you got all the trades coming up, and then it's, going to be a time of a chill period right after that. So we'll see. Family, I appreciate you for joining me once again. As always, make sure you hit me up on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, YouTube, with all your NBA takes. Make sure you hit me up in the comments. Send a voicemail if you want to be featured on the show with your thoughts of what you think will happen, may happen, what's your thoughts about what did happen. Send me a voicemail, 908-718-1592. I will play it on the show if it's great, which it probably will be because y'all the family, so I know y'all going to be sending me good voicemails. Subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, family. This is episode 211, and we out.